98% of folks have an inflated, unreal worry that the adjustment technique is going to be more painful than what they're already experiencing with their pain or condition.
And welcome to Affinity Peak Performance, empowering you to peak in health and energy to fully express what you were created to be.
Hey, welcome back to Affinity Peak Performance. I'm Doc Todd Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode where this episode will be a little quicker, but I'd like to cover some common misconceptions or misinformation, which I hear a lot of times inside the clinic, but more so outside the clinic at casual gatherings and just kind of casual conversation that comes up. And oftentimes it boils down to a couple of things. One, there's misinformation that someone has held on to, or there is kind of what I call hearsay information, where they heard something which oftentimes when you investigate is inaccurate to begin with. So I'd like to clarify some of those things, hopefully, to the whole reason, and so that someone that, if that's their only obstacle is misinformation, lack of information, that's keeping them from getting the results and living free of whatever it is that is plaguing you. If that's all it is, that should be addressed. And I think it's part of duty calling to address some of those things. Hopefully will help. One of the most common things I hear all the time, not all the time, but often, is, oh, I heard once you get a chiropractic adjustment, you always have to keep getting chiropractic adjustments. So the funny thing to me is the quickest analogy I've come up with on that is it is very much like, say, you first had a very clean cuisine, tasty meal. Before that, you're eating slop in the trough for years at a time. And that's what you thought was normal and good. But then for the first time, you had a cuisine that knocked your socks off. Well, wouldn't it be natural that you would want a little more of that type of food? Your body would crave it, your mind would crave it, because you know inherently it's better for you. It's kind of like that. Or if you're used to drinking muddy water and now you've had clean filtered water, naturally your palate would want the clean water, right? So once you feel healthier and feel better, I think it is a natural part of being human and having an affinity towards those things that you would want more. So it's more analogous to that. Another thing is, once you have chiropractic care, you have to have so many visits in the front end and this kind of thing. Sometimes that's true, but it's to cause change in the body. So here's another analogy for that. Say you're 300 pounds overweight and you want to get down to what should be a healthy body weight. Well, when you first visit the gym, you can't work out really super hard for one day and then expect the body to change that drastically, right? It takes a concerted effort, directional effort to cause change in the body. And it does take more energy and time. Now, once you've made those changes, you can spend less time, energy, and direction and maintain that level of health. So there's also that thing that I've heard from people that it seems to be a stumbling block for them. But if you put it in perspective, I think that'll be helpful. Another misconception oftentimes is something that they see shocking video on TikTok, sometimes with these towels wrapped around these big pulls or these hammers and chisels. Some of these videos are out there for just that reason, shock value. A lot of those techniques are not even taught in the chiropractic universities and colleges. And the few that are taught usually a very different way. So those are more out there for, in my opinion, shock value. And it's also not covering the exam that was done before and checking for any contraindications or any issues that the spine might have inherently with it, post-surgeries, deteriorations, maybe some cancerous changes. There's all these things that we're trained to check for as well before working with spines or nervous systems. So all of that is foregone in these videos, and the shock value or they're left with. So they think, oh, that's a chiropractic adjustment. or it has to be a very loud, forceful event. Well, there's so many techniques in chiropractic, I don't know if you're aware of or not, that are very low force, very gentle. We adjust infants, newborn babies with them. We adjust very elderly osteoporotic folks with some of these same techniques. So there is a large spectrum of what is available in chiropractic care to fit the needs of the individual. And that's the whole point. So a proper exam, finding the proper techniques that the person is comfortable with and gets results with, that is how you get proper care in chiropractic. When you do get proper care in chiropractic, the results that you get can be absolutely life-changing. I know it was for me. It absolutely changed my life forevermore for the better, and including my family members and including my friends and everyone that I knew around those years and continue to know. I've seen it change so many lives for the better. It is, at this point, hard to even keep track of. I stopped counting at 6,000 cases, and that was many, many years ago. So it's quite beyond that now. And that's just me personally, who I had treated at the time. But that's exciting to me because there's a huge utilization of the care and growing every day, exploding currently. But it's exciting to me that still that many people either are unaware of it, misinformed, haven't experienced it in their life yet. And it's my anticipatory excitement for them, for you, that if you get past some of these misunderstandings and have a little leap of faith and get with an excellent chiropractor, I look forward to the changes that'll make for the positive for you forevermore. And you'll one day look back and giggle and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I lived without it these many years. I lived like that, and now I get to live like this. It can be that profound. So I look forward to sharing that with you, either personally or hearing your story that you found that somewhere where you live or close to home. So that's my intention with that for you. So some other misconceptions that pop up from time to time or misunderstandings are the old one about, never let them adjust your neck because you can get a stroke. Well, they did a huge meta study both in Canada and the U.S., and they've proven that it's just not the case. You have the same chance of stroking going to your medical doctor's office, pre-stroking on the way in, pre-stroking on the way out. It's the exact same. So there is no increased risk, and especially when we, as doctors, are trained on doing precursory exams to make sure that there's no unusual risk factors, heightened risk factors. So they did this huge meta study, put that old misinformation that was geniusly propagated for many years by those that would gain from diversion of things healing naturally. We'll just put it that way. Anyways, that's been put to bed finally a little while ago with this meta study. So that is not a real thing. It is not a real fear. But I heard somebody, it gets back to that. I heard there was a surgeon in Florida that amputated the wrong foot. Is that true or not? I don't know. Could be. The point is, the studies are in, and that's not the case. So put that fear to rest. If that's what's been holding you back this whole time, it's not real. And if that's what you've been advising in the health arena, it's time to get up to date on that a little bit. Anyhow, so that's that one. You hear that one from time to time, not as often. Trying to think what are some other popular misconceptions and misunderstandings. Something you can take away with and research yourself and feel confident in knowing a little greater perspective is the goal. Also, kind of along the lines of the shock value videos, most folks, and I would say that is so often reported like, I thought it was going to be like this, and it was just like that, and that's way easier. And now I have, relief already, starting to feel some relief. And then the next time, the next day, greater and greater relief. So they have it built up in their mind. It's going to be a much bigger ordeal, both physically and what they experience within the area that they're hurting. And 98% of the time, it's the exact opposite. There's a few cases that flare up a little bit in the beginning, but then get better. But I'd say 98% of the time they get some kind of immediate relief, and it's way less painful and discomforting to go through the procedure than what they thought it was going to be. So that's That's refreshing to know. A lot of people don't know this about the education of a doctor of chiropractic. It's a doctorate degree. And the hours are very similar. If you do a study of the schools, the hours are very, very similar to medical MD. What people don't know is where MD, the curriculums are just shifted a bit. So like where they'll spend more hours in toxicology and psychology, which is interesting. We'll spend more hours in physical diagnosis, like actually what's wrong with the person. We'll spend more hours in x-ray, more hours in neurology, in the core curriculums. So the shiftings in technique, the shiftings are different, but the overall amount of schooling is the same, and why it's a doctorate degree. So the 3 doctorate degrees that are recognized by all states, and they're adding the naturopathy doctor in some states too, or doctor of naturopathy. But the 3 main ones are DC, doctor of chiropractic, MD, medical doctor, and DO, doctor of osteopathy. So the DOs over the years have kind of been absorbed by the medical model by and large, but they still have trainings in gross manipulations, which was based on restoring blood flow as cause of prevention of diseases, whereas chiropractic was based on clearing interferences to the nervous system, which masters all the systems. So, but anyhow, those are the 3 main doctorate degrees within healthcare. But like I said, they're adding the ND, and there's also the Oriental doctor, the OD, with regard to acupuncture and things like that too. So, but that's the gist of it as far as being able to, and I think they may be adding or have added in some states, if I'll have to look into this to tell you accurately, but I think physical therapy came up with a doctorate level degree as well, if I'm not mistaken. Less usual from what I understand, but I think that might be something that's coming to light as well. Oh, also, here's a misconception too. Physical therapy, everything physical therapists learn in the PT degree is something that is incorporated in within our scope in chiropractic. A lot of people don't know that, so they think you have to go to a physical therapist to learn physical therapy exercises and stretches, and that's simply not true. We're versed in all those things. What is nice, though, and oftentimes we find that if our clinic is not equipped for physical therapy rehab programs, it is nice to work with a physical therapist in a clinic that's equipped for it, so that people can get a proper program that we may not have space, time, or energy to implement. So big fan of physical therapy, always have been. And it's very important, especially in the healing process. Sometimes it's cart before the horse. Sometimes the medical model will throw things to mask the pain, a painkiller, a muscle relaxer, anti-inflammatory, and go do physical therapy. But sometimes the problem's deeper, and it's more important to get the problem that's deeper fixed, like a disc herniation, disc bulge, displacement, as an example. Get that to heal properly first, so it can handle the exercise demand of the physical therapy, of the exercises and the strengthening and the stretching. So sometimes there's a little cart before the horse in the medical model, but it is an important service that is hand in glove with what we do chiropractically as well. And that's why we cover all those things in grad school. So just clarifying that a little bit better hopefully helps. I'm trying to think of a few other little topics real quick that you might have some value in understanding a little greater detail on. Oh, also, this is interesting. They did that same study of medical schools and chiropractic education. And in the medical realm, there was only 25% of medical schools at the time had one class on nutrition. And so if you look at that from a standpoint of understanding nutrition as being something to counsel with and about, understand at a deeper level, that's a very skinny amount of education with a very large amount of education on pharmaceuticals. And you can see why the weighting and prejudice and bias might be to pharmaceutically approach something when you could use something that has been proven for a very long time to work in nature and bring about the same changes. And then the question becomes, is it more about the financial control of entities both regulatory entities and also those that influence those regulatory entities. That's another story. Won't really get into that. I think we've all seen some of that over the years, so if not a lot. But that it can explain sometimes why the weighting or bias or information can be sometimes lacking or very different in the medical setting and the chiropractic setting with regard to what can I utilize that exists that's natural to affect these things. And that's where your nutritional counseling comes into play. And it's something that we do get a greater amount of in our educational line, our curriculum. So again, everything we do is designed to bring about the body's order internally, clear interferences, allow the body as it's designed to do, which it is a self-healing mechanism, give it its greatest chances to heal from the inside out. Traditional medical model is to cover up, mask symptoms, force changes in symptoms or physiology. If that fails, then cut out pieces and alter it and put hardware in. Now, sometimes those things are absolutely necessary, and I'm a fan of when they are necessary. But by and large, that model is failing as far as the lifestyle-driven conditional diseases and deficits. So in those categories, chiropractic is the number one and should be the number one approach. Healthy, wellness-oriented approaches allowing the body to heal from the inside out. And the medical model is really best reserved for emergency medicine interventions and maybe some exotic interventions that are too complex from a hereditary standpoint to easily modify and or in a short enough time to modify naturally. Sometimes a stronger intervention is necessary. So not anti-medicine, please don't get that wrong, but I just think the models are out of order, and that is part of a reflection in why we rank so low as a country in our health measurements. What we allow in our food supply is another major category. What we allow in chemical toxins and things in our exposures, everything from home products to environmental to work, all of these things that are allowed, water supply, that are allowed in to our bodies via these indirect and direct routes is part of the problem of why we're ranking so low. Our lifestyle conditioning, where some generations are coming up accepting is this is enough discipline in life, this is enough effort in life, I think is missing the mark. Sometimes that leads to some of these lifestyle issues. Anyhow, those are some topics real quick that I just wanted to cover and hopefully shed a little more light, a little more knowledge on some of these misinformations or there's lots more we can go into that I've absorbed over the years, but for this time and purpose, that's a good start. Hopefully it gives you some takeaways, and hopefully that helps a little bit. Anyways, till the next time we see each other, I wish you well, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, take care, bye.